All right, everybody. Well, welcome. This is yet another in our Right Now series, and we're happy to have you all here to write some poetry. Today, let me get rid of this graphic. Today, we are fortunate. We've got the South Dakota Poet Laureate, Christine Stewart-Nuñez, and we're excited. I've been hoping to find a way to work more with the Poets Laureates of the states around here, and these series have been fantastic for a way to do this. So I'm really grateful she's here. Now, for those who don't know, Christine is a professor of English at South Dakota State University. She's the Poet Laureate until 2023, and she's written 4 poetry books. And she is a wonderful human being. You can see more at Christine, C-H, Stewart, E-W-A-R-T, Nuñez.com. So with that, let's turn it over to Christine for today.
Thank you so much, Matt, for this invitation, and thanks to the collective and all you lovely people for logging on today for this hour of writing and talking about writing. I have prepared a little bit of reading a few poems so that you can learn about me and my work. But I've written those 4 books. I write a lot about based on research and experience and kind of like the effusion of my experiences and research. I tend to layer things a lot to kind of ramp my own experience through art or through travel or through other sorts of research like that. And the prompt I have for you today doesn't require you to go out and do any research right now, but you might want to think about that as you use what we come up with from today for the future. And by research, I mean, you know, the dictionary is research. Your favorite Google search or your search engine, that's research. You know, anything I define research as anything that takes you out of the realm of the self, and then you can just bring it back in. So anyway, that's a little bit about where I draw my own experience, my own writing. So I have 3 poems that I'll read to you, and I can talk a little bit about how they came to be. This book is called Bluewords Greening, and it's based a lot on my personal experience. There's 2 parts of it, and the first is about raising a child with a rare form of epilepsy called Landau-Kleffner syndrome. So my son Holden is 14, and he started having seizures when he was 4, and then his language ability just kind of pretty much stopped, and he was mute, and he couldn't understand language either, just because of where the seizures were happening in his brain. It's an old movie, but if anyone's seen the movie 50 First Dates, super old now, but the character gets a concussion and she forgets the day. That's kind of like how he was for many years, where the seizures would just wipe away his memory. So then the second part of this book is based on my experiences with recurrent miscarriage, because after I had my son Holden, I had 4 miscarriages. And so there's a lot of overlap, but thinking about chromosomal abnormalities and the body and how we ramp our lives through science, you know, and language. So this one also is based on some ekphrasis, so it's writing based on art. And so I was looking at this piece of art that was a girl lying on her head, or like sleeping like this. And I started thinking a lot about sleep and what sleep means. And so I wrote this poem called Boy at Rest, based on Holden and his rest or not rest. It does have an epigraph from Carolyn Forche. While sleeping, the child vanishes from his life. So, boy at rest. In Girl at Rest, I saw only a hazy silhouette of a child's body, the navy blue frame of her arms, head, a bit of torso. And I read the artist's choice of ochre and light gray, shades shifting only slightly to convey background and skin with wonder. The colors nearly vanish the child. When I study my son asleep, it's in full dimension. Eyelids threaded with a blue vein, a freckle emerging on the outline of his lip. There's no facial stress, but I don't need to guess. Rest is an illusion, not a feature of a brain besought by seizures. By day, they complicate the spelling of C-A-T, blur the way sounds rolling into each other infuse meaning. When sound does get through the screen of spells, a word may fail to find its place on his tongue. The seizures also erase memories of lunchtime pizza, gym class tag, the answer to "what's your last name?" the need to look both ways before crossing the parking lot outside the store. On the monitor, I hear him speak, a midnight phrase thrown from deep sleep, and I wonder what words emerge despite the seizure's surge from the visual play of his dreams. What world does he vanish to? It seems impossible to draw in ink or words more than a sleeping child's curves and ankles. When I tiptoe into his room to retuck his blanket, I'll only assume that wherever he's at, he'll come back. So miraculously, or I guess biologically, miracles of the body, Holden stopped having seizures this last year when he started to go through puberty. And so it's really interesting to see him able to remember now and learn to read and spell and do math. So it's pretty intense having immersed myself into this world of sign language and trying to communicate to with my son via touch and other ways. And now he's starting to explore language in different ways now. So that's pretty exciting. So the other two poems, so that was art and experience, kind of, together. This other one is art, experience, and research, all collected all together. It's from my book called Untrussed. And these used to be the same manuscript. And I pulled them apart, and then they were published by two different publishers the same month. So I call them like my twins. So these are my twins. And this one is basically about the unraveling of a relationship. I call it my divorce book, but it's really not my divorce book, but it's the unraveling of relationship. So I think I just lost the page that I had so carefully found. So let me find the page again. Okay. So there's a medieval illuminated manuscript called Collecting Cocoons and Weaving Silk, and it's really beautiful because it's of women doing this work, and we just don't see a lot of women in illuminated medieval manuscripts. So that's where I got the title for this, but this is actually about packing up a house after you've left a relationship, and it uses research of butterflies. And I've been a fan of butterflies for a long time, but then I did some research on what actually happens to them in the cocoon, and I don't know if any of you know, it's kind of gross, but super cool. Like, it's really cool. So I use that metaphor in here. Stranger, if you collected me now under the bright South Dakota stars, if you opened the door of my suburban chrysalis, you'd find me digesting myself. The protein-rich ooze of the pupa stage looks like books in boxes, empty frames leaning against a wall, naked shelves, mounds of clothes to pack, recycle, trash. Furniture free, I've dumped my guts. Dissect this, please. Find the spiral shell, skillet, sapphire ring, jewel box, teddy bear, my life's imaginal discs, stem cells to create black wings and antenna. Soon I'll moisten the windows and push out. As much as I want to forget blue notes and yellow flags, splotches of sky and touches of maize will mark my flight. And I'll always be averse to the scent of his house mark, even past the point of eclosion. So that's when I started thinking about metaphors for leaving and packing, and then that research just sent me down that that rabbit hill of imagery there. And then the other one, so one of the things that I like about traveling, I've gotten to travel a lot in my life, unfortunately. Even when Holden was a little kid, I traveled with him a lot. And not so much now anymore. It's kind of harder. He's a little bit more rigid when it comes to new experiences. But I went to Moscow on it with some colleagues a few years ago, and we were trying to find a way to get South Dakota students interested in studying abroad in Russia. So that's what we were doing there. And actually, so I have that poem, and I'll read that poem. I'll read that poem about Russia in a minute, or maybe later, maybe because I'm running out of time. So, but I like to ramp experiences through that kind of research too, through travel. But the poem I actually had marked, and I think I will read instead, because I know the actual prompt that it came from is called Evolution, and it's based on, again, research and personal experience. And the prompt came from Kim Adonisio's book, Ordinary Genius. And the prompt is, look up from your notebook or computer and fall in love with the first thing you see. And so I looked up and fell in love with my son's Tyrannosaurus Rex toy. Now, weird thing, okay? My husband now, after the divorce, I got remarried. His last name is Rex. You can't get weirder than that. Like, and this is way before I ever knew him. So anyway, just keep that in mind. Evolution. Dinosaur, I have fallen for your tyrant lizard ways. Lording over Triceratops and Stegosaurus on the toy table, you strike fear into Darth Vader's heart. Han Solo escapes, but Skywalker screams inside your pink painted mouth, your jaw unhinged, even as a toddler hugs your plastic back, tugs your graceful tail's 40 vertebrae. Tyrannosaurus Rex, last land dinosaur alive before asteroids fell, before volcanoes spewed liquid heat, before ash veiled earth in darkness. I love you not because of your 12-inch teeth, your 7-ton ground-quaking step, a heft inspiring chills in the Cretaceous period's bravest hadrosaurs, but because you're misunderstood. Paleontologists lowered your top speed by 32 kilometers. Over conference tables, they slam down research, come to blows. Some say you are black-bodied, red-headed, that your stink scared competitors away. Others mourn their predator king, ignoring the nobility of those who do what their bodies do best, be it three-toed theropod feet or 4 limbs of cortical bone. Does it matter if you held your prey immobile? If binocular vision and large olfactory bulbs mean you fed on the nearly or already dead? Under your smooth skin, the corded muscle, some of your bones were too hollow to hold your weight, but are hollowed to humans who study the story of your end. Do they see you, my dearest T-Rex, in the Andean condor, black feathers spanning 11 feet and soaring, even at 26 pounds, to dine on whale, llama, alpaca? How time limits us. If only we evolved like you. Instead, we wait for that spark of surety, for our gods to give us wings. So that's a little, those are kind of longer poems for me. I don't always write such long poems. So I started looking at the time. So those are some introduction poems for you. And then I thought we'd get to the workshop. So I have a prompt that is in a number of steps. And so the first part of the step, is everyone ready? Okay, so round one, or the first part. And I've tried this recently, so I can read the poem that emerged finally from this, but this is a really old prompt. I have no idea where it came from. I just found it in my files, and I was like, oh, I think I'm gonna try that. And it was generative again. I assume I've used it before. But it's just called 10 words. So start by listing 10 compelling, concrete words. So mine were scaffold, plywood, blinds, paint, echo, pattern, smoke, lime, sundog, and wind chill. So just list 10 words as strongly concrete as you can. I'll be right back. I'll come later, okay? If you've got your 10 words, give me a thumbs up. Okay, great. So from that list then, analyze your list and choose one word with which to work. I chose the word smoke because it has multiple meanings and definitions, but you can choose whichever one you want to, you feel like the most drawn to for today. And then write down its definitions, and you can either use your mind or a dictionary, or I'll show you my dictionary because I'm so excited about it. This is my dictionary. I'm such a nerd. It's like one of my favorite things. So I'll tell you the story about it after you come up with your definitions. Does everyone have definitions? So one of the reasons I love that dictionary, and the story of how I got it was I was reading this book and it talked about the importance of finding an unabridged dictionary if you want to like resurrect words or recover words that have been in, when the dictionary's been abridged, right? They take words out. So I went to the linguistics professor I work with and I was like, yeah, do you know of anybody who has this particular dictionary? And he's like, yeah, I got two. You want one? And I was like, so anyway, that's the story of that dictionary. But there's lots, I mean, you open up the dictionary and you think you know what a word means, and it just, again, rabbit hole of research and words and sound and associations that you never thought about. So that's why I always look like a word up that I'm really attracted to the word, or I'm really interested in the word, because I want to really understand it. So mine was smoke. And then the next, and I just wrote down like, you know, it's a substance produced by burning, or it's a way of cooking. But then here's the other part of it. So this is the third part of the prompt. Now associate as much as you can, riff off of that word. So you can use examples of the word, memories associated with the word. There are no rules. So just associate and riff. And if you're a visual person, you can make one of those word maps, you know, you can make lines outside the word, or you can draw some sort of a symbol that's associated with it, whatever. Just brainstorm as many things as you can associate with that word. And I'll give you a little bit more time to do that. why don't you take one more minute? One more minute. Okay, let's just pause for a minute with writing. We can always go back to that list. Or maybe you wrote one thing, a memory, and it took you down a path of that, which is fine. This is everything in what I call invention work, or the Greeks called invention work, a rhetorical term. I just use it all the time for whatever makes poetry or whatever makes writing for me. So whatever you come up with, invention work is fair game. I think for whatever. It's just trying to generate the material. And so I came up with a couple things. So I use the phrase "as in" to help me associate and to riff. So as in the smell of my bath towel after my mother snuck her cigarette, as in the swirl of milk and coffee like a tendril of smoke, as in the best way to eat salmon, the taste of fire and flesh, as in so thick it becomes a scarf around your mouth, as in my grandfather's pipe, a very deep memory because he supposedly stopped smoking before I was born, but I have this memory of it. And his nickname was Smokey, as in what my son mistakes steam for, and the color of my former walls, not mist, but smoke. So those were the first kind of examples that I came up with in my work. Does anyone want to share like just one thing, like a phrase or a line that you came up with that you think is compelling? I don't know. Nobody?
If you've got your hand up and you're not being seen, put it in the comments to everyone too, and we'll call on you that way, or the chat.
Peggy?
Oh, no, no.
Oh, nope. Okay. Just kidding. Okay, well, I will read the poem that I came up with, and then maybe I'd love to hear from some of you. So maybe if you don't have a comment that you want, or something you want to share from your writing, maybe you want to you have a comment or a question for me here soon. So be thinking of something. So that, like I said, that was a pretty old list that I had come up with, and I had it on my computer. And so one of my favorite forms of poetry is called a ghazal or ghazal. I always say ghazal, but I've been corrected many times, and I can't get it through my head to say otherwise. But its roots are in medieval Persian poetry, and it's also been called the Arabic ode. It's 5 to 7 couplets. There's a refrain and a rhyme pattern in it. So there's the same number of syllables. You have to use your name in the second to the last line. I'm a writer that I find a lot of liberation within forms. I know a lot of writers don't, a lot of poets don't, but I like the constraints sometimes. Sometimes the poem will fall out of form before it ends up as a final draft, but almost always I ramp it through some type of form to get my head thinking in fresh ways. So this is, I thought the smoke was a really good, given the the tumult of our country right now and the hopefully transformations that will be produced from all of this, these difficulties and this injustice. So there's a little bit of reference to that in here. And it's called Summer of Smoke. We fought over fire as flames fed the smoke. Later, you kissed me and your lips shed the smoke. Protests turn and cities burn. A dream deferred explodes. Smothering justice will spread the smoke. I savored roasted marshmallows and blistered hot dogs. What I recall first instead, the smoke. Tendril of milk and coffee, steam so thick it scarfs my mouth. In everything, we read the smoke. Flames transform blueprints and stories. My body's a fire vessel. A phoenix threads the smoke. When fever architects my dreams, the song leaves my city, music drops, and words wed the smoke. Christine, you know ghost scents, bacon and bourbon, rose and cigarettes. It's why you dread the smoke. That's new. I think I've never read that out loud before, so you're a new audience. Thank you.
And there's a couple in the chat box.
Okay.
A couple folks have put things for you.
Okay. I'm reading. I used the word wait and wrote a list of phrases it can be used in. It tells a story. Nice. Wait and see. Yes. Yeah, so what I think is compelling about this draft is there's this tension here, right? So there's going back between being ready and being on the precipice of something and cautionary. And so one way that I would develop this is to kind of think about what are some images that you can imagine waiting on, like, or waiting around, or what can give some visual shape to that waiting. That's what I loved that. I love that idea of that tension of being poised there. So that's a good one. Oh, sweat. Oh, that's a great word too. I mean, especially this bead of sweat slowly dripping. I've used that image in my memoir. I'm working on this draft about raising Holden, this memoir about raising Holden. And there's always a ways you try to convey that emotional feeling, but like physically, right? And sweat is a really great way, like where the sweat is dripping or where it's coming from, or, and now with the pandemic, like sweat takes on this whole other, because now what can be in the sweat. Yeah. So anyway, that just is an exciting word. Wait and sweat. Nice. Can this technique be used for, I think this technique can be used for a lot of things. I mean, I like prompts that urge me to tell a story, but sometimes for me, to keep things fresh, I need things that urge me to associate, right? That urge me to think outside the box. And so with memories and memoir, what I think you can do is create these words around something that happened to you or an event or something. And actually, I'll borrow from Priscilla Long. The Portable Writer's Mentor is a great book. I took a class with her in 2010, and it completely revolutionized my prose writing. She told me that I sounded overeducated in the workshop, which was like hard to hear, but super true, because I'm like, yeah, I've got a PhD. What's wrong with that? And she's like, well, because your words, your sentences are just unpenetrable. She didn't say that, but that's what I took from that. And I just changed the way I constructed sentences. And after that, my essays started getting snapped up. So there's something to that advice. But she has this thing called the word trap. And she says, she advises, well, she's the one who advised about the dictionary, to be honest. So she has a huge impact on my writing. But so she advises to gather all these words around whatever topic you're writing about. So that, and instead of choosing the words at random that just sound interesting or compelling, it's more of a deliberate, choose words associated with the color yellow because you're writing about yellow, or your first time in a classroom, or your first, you know, like whatever the memory you're writing about. So yeah, I think this can definitely be used for all sorts of ways. Another way, if you want to frame it a little bit or narrow it for memoir, or for specific, even poetry that's based on a specific memory, but that's a really deep memory. If you can say it in the present tense, like I remember, you know, I'm walking down the street when I see blah, blah, blah. That also helps pull those memories from the past and kind of bring them into the present, and which will also give you more things to write about. So. Owl. Oh, wow. Owl. The title of the book is A Portable Writer's Mentor by Priscilla Long. There's 2 versions of it. She's got a new version out a couple years ago. I have it, but I haven't read it. But it has to be good because the first one was so good. I use it all the time. But owl. So I can't help but, so my aunt just passed away a few weeks ago, and I wrote about this because she collected owls, and my first memory of her was going to her house and having all of these really kitschy owls everywhere, just these crazy, like, you know, different kinds of owls, like owls on towels, or painted owls, or owls, with sequin eyes, or just all these. So I'm just now, I think I have to write my own owl poem too. So thanks, Julie, for that word. That's a great word. Did anyone else have any ideas or questions? Is there one thread that runs through all forms of poetry that makes a poem poetry? I would argue, and I will have colleagues that disagree with me, but music to me is the thing that makes a poem a poem. Even in a prose poem, the music, the attention to rhythm, or the way words sound off of each other, even if they don't rhyme, or they don't even have maybe alliteration or assonance or any of those repetitions of sound. There's some way that there's a rhythmic pull of the language together that kind of makes it maybe not rise above prose, because that sounds a little bit snotty, but because prose is good too, but makes it, and it separates it out a little bit. And for me, that's what makes a poem poetry. It's its musicality, its potential for music. And it's very distilled in ways that prose isn't. And sometimes I think that has to do with the musicality, but for me, I overwrite and then I pull words out, right? I don't know how many words I pull out of poem drafts, but like in my memoir, at one point it was 124,000 words, and now it's like 77,000 words. Like I just pull and pull and pull out. So you just distill and distill, but with poetry, it becomes even more distilled. Oh, there's some more. Good. Oh, there's some more. Lamppost poised. Oh, I love that idea of lampposts being like poised. Like, I love that, seeing it, lit up eyes. Yeah. I don't want to think about the state seeing me scratch my ass, which means that's a good poem. Yes. That's a great draft. It's a great draft. For me, again, the tension that's in this poem is this idea of being watched, right? But there's this boredom being watched, and it's an interesting tension, because we think we're being watched for a particular reason, and right, we are, but not. You don't think it's the boredom that's going to be there. So Yeah, I like that tension about this watchfulness of this very daily life, right? This whatever happens in the day. I've been describing my house as being kind of having an anchor, is as anchor like right now because of for the virus and spending so much time at home. So I think one of the things we'll see as artists coming out of this pandemic is a lot of people having different relationships with their homes or not having a home, or feeling like my brother is a filmmaker in Los Angeles, and he's probably going to have to leave his home because he's out of work. So he'll probably, well, I'm hoping he'll move into my home for a little while. But it's just this idea of home is always it can be a positive place, but it's also not for many, and it can transform in this whole experience. So there's some, thanks Jordan for putting that link up there. In art, are there elements and principles of design? Oh, so Sherry, where's Sherry? Sherry asked that question. So my husband is an architecture professor, and my whole new book is about principles of design of architecture. And so I don't even know where in art there are elements and principles of design. Yeah, those are all the things that I teach in my poetry class, like image and sound and tension, which I've pointed out a couple of times in those drafts. That's a principle to design around. But in design, my husband calls it in architecture, he calls it agitation. Like, so he designs around an agitation, right? Something like a juxtaposition where you see things don't fit, but maybe they do, and what do they say when you put them together? So there's an agitation that is designed around. So there's lineation, there's sonics, there's imagery, tension, there's insight, there's informs. If you want to go down the form, there's a lot of different principles of design that way. Does that make sense? Is that what the question was? I think that could be another workshop. I think that could be another workshop. So, what other sorts of questions do you have, or does anyone want to share any more? Oh, hold on. Okay. I love the word chicken. I think that's a great chicken. A chicken's a great word. And there's all those ways different to use it. So I'm just reading. Everyone can see, right? So I'm just looking at the crow, you crow, I awaken Bob. So one of the great things about like a word like chicken isn't just like the actual chicken of the animal, but all the words you associate with chicken, right? So someone who isn't brave is chicken, or something that, jokes in popular culture, like why did the chicken cross the road? So one of the great things about using a dictionary or looking online to like the etymology of words too, the history of words, is you can find all these different ways that they're used. And so I don't know, that's what you think it's a silly word to start with, but hey, you know what? You got somewhere with the chicken. It's taking you somewhere. One of the question is how do I assist Matt in promoting poetry? Well, am I helping you now? Promoting
Definitely.
One of my for in South Dakota, they wanted us to it's an open. It's like they just throw it open. Whoever wants to apply can apply, and you just send a letter in talking about your credentials and something to pitch, a project to pitch. So for me, I pitched an anthology to make an anthology of poetry by South Dakotans, and it was formed by two ideas. So I saw Tracy K. Smith, our former United States Poet Laureate, when she was out in Spearfish, South Dakota. One of her programs was rural areas. So I don't know if any of you saw her. She probably wouldn't come to Omaha because she wouldn't come to Brookings because Brookings was too much of a big city. But she did go to Spearfish and Sturgis. So I was out there and I saw her, and I was so impressed by the way she read some of her own poetry, which was beautiful. But then she opened up her anthology that she had edited, 50 poems, and she had the whole room at the Spearfish Opera House discuss 2 poems. And it was amazing to watch everyone get really excited about this. So I had that idea. And then, when I was in Nebraska going to school at UNL, I worked with Ted Cruiser on one of the first, when he first did the American Life and Poetry newspaper column. I was one of the first 2 graduate students who worked with him on that. And I always admired how he wanted to kind of create this repository of poems that reflected American life. So that's how I kind of put those 2 ideas together, and for the South Dakota in Poems. And I've got this big binder with all the poems that I selected, and I'm working on the introduction right now, and hopefully we'll get that out in the fall to launch, and then I can use that as a tool to promote poetry across the state, because I want other people to see the great writing of other poets. And I did a lot of fundraising for it. I'm still doing fundraising for it, because for me, there's no money attached to the Poet Laureateship except for what I'm able to raise, or what my university happens to support for me. So yeah, that's how I'm promoting poetry. And Matt and I were talking earlier about doing readings once. I don't know, maybe we have to wait for a vaccine. I'm thinking the vaccine is the thing that's going to keep us all safe. But being able to do more readings and really getting people out talking about poetry. Because what I'm surprised, I don't know why I'm surprised by it, but every time I go out into a community, or I find more poets, or every time I put a call out for poems for the literary journal I was editing for the South Dakota State Poetry Society was Past Petals, and every time I would send a call out, I would learn about new poets in the state and the region, and that's just a joy. That's why I like to do what I do. We've got more animals and words at the deck, I see. So yeah, that's a little bit about what my project is as the Poet Laureate. But I think one of the things that we've started to do a little bit more are like Zoom readings. I'm a part of something called the Women Poets Collective, which I started in 2014. I was pregnant with my youngest son, so after all of those miscarriages, I got remarried to an older man, and we just thought we were too old to be parents. And not so. I had a baby after I turned 42, a couple days after I turned 42. And so Xavier is my youngest son. And where was I even going with that? I've lost that train of thought. What was I just talking?
The Women's Collective.
Oh, the Women's Collective. So I was pregnant with Xavier, and I had this manuscript, my twins, right? I had these twins here that I needed some feedback on, and I couldn't travel. And so I thought, well, who do I know that's close enough to drive to Brookings that I could invite to workshop manuscripts, and who might have a manuscript? And I was also a little bit miffed because I had heard that there were this group of dudes in Sioux Falls who met, and one of my friends, one of those dudes, said he tried to get women involved and invited into this lunch group of dudes, and they didn't, like, they wanted it to be a group of dudes. So I was like, it's gonna be women. And so I invited 9 women in South Dakota and North Dakota that were within close, and some of them I knew by reputation and some I didn't know. And I said, hey, do you have a manuscript of poetry, like a full-length book that you want some feedback on? And if so, do you want to get together? And 8 of those women said yes. So only one didn't respond, and she was on sabbatical, so I think she just didn't get the email. And so I've developed this model where once a year we meet, and we each take, it's a feminist group, so we each take responsibility for planning the year. So it rotates and wherever we want to host it. And we always do some sort of public dissemination in case we can get money from universities or from jobs or from wherever for funding groups to go. So there's a public reading. And the first couple years we did a lot of socialization with each other because we didn't all know each other. And that's really important to me in groups to be people first and to connect as people and as writers. That helps it grow and stay connected. So we did a lot of having drinks and coffee and sharing of meals together, and then we each get it 1 hour. So we share each other's manuscripts a couple months beforehand, then we each get an hour, and I pick one person or we have a schedule, one person leads the discussion and everyone else responds. And the first 4 years, 10 out of the 12 that we became had manuscripts accepted for publication or contracts. So all of us have, and the one who hasn't sent hers out. She hasn't sent it out. So it's a really great model that we hope to, and I've decided that it doesn't have to be women at all. It could be men who can agree on if they want to form their own group, can agree on this shared workload, this shared model of governance, if you will. I don't know, it's just an academic word, but that's what we really try to share the responsibility so that it's not just one person's work from year to year. So that's something else that I've been doing to kind of promote poetry, but at a level where this for generating new work and getting people moving people's practice forward this way. And I think that collective is geared towards people who really want to take their art to the next level. And there's just not a lot of that in our region. So that's a couple questions. I'm glad that you've enjoyed it. Thanks, Twyla. I must say that my experience in Nebraska and all the good professors and writers that I met in Nebraska really informed my ideas about writing, and was really I can't say enough good things about the state of Nebraska in terms of the education I got there, and when I lived there, and the nurturing I got from people there. So I hope to bring that and to keep that and nurture that here in South Dakota, where I've created kind of a little niche for myself. So any other questions or poems? I kind of wanted to read a poem because, let's see, let me scroll back here. Oh, sandspur. I missed that one. Christy, sandspur. That is a great word. That is a really great word. I love the lamppost is still a really great word. To Kita? Am I saying your name right? I hope so. Okay. I'm not sure if she's still here, but I wanted to read a poem for her. She said that she's a speech therapist, and there's this poem in here that every time I read it, if there's a special ed teacher or a speech therapist in the room, they say that all teachers should read this poem. So maybe I'll read it, and then if there's any more questions, then we're almost up to the hour, and I don't want to keep you up. It's called Lessons in Context, because, as a feminist, I always, learned that no means no, but Not so when you're raising someone with language difficulties. No means maybe. No means you're annoying me with sounds. Can't you see this game right here? Your questions hurt my ears. No means yes, if you ask again in 5 minutes. No means I see your moving lips. And so, no means no. Sometimes. No means I hate that t-shirt. I'm sick of swallowing chalk. That kid over there smells like pee. No means I'm thinking. Persuade me with marshmallows. No means sometimes I enjoy pissing you off. No means you're clueless. You don't know what this is like. Here, I'll throw myself on the ground, screaming and weeping to give you a little taste. So that's my, so, all right, thank you. Matt, is there anything else? Did I miss anything that you wanted to?
No, I just wanted to thank you for spending an hour with us this way. If people have further questions, they can find more about you at your website, Stewart-Nuñez.com.
Yep. And my email address is christine.poetscholar, POETSCHOLAR @gmail.com. Yeah. And you can always send to the university one too, but I don't like checking my work email during the summer. Because I'm doing different kind of work now than I am during the school year.
Yay. And then as a reminder for everyone, we've got another workshop tomorrow, also at 12:30, with Huascar he's the Kansas Poet Laureate. And then we've got Debra Marquart on Friday at 12:30, Iowa's Poet Laureate. And then a whole new series starting in July, every Friday. So you can find this on our Facebook page, Nebraska Writers Collective. And otherwise, let me put up this fine notice with all the reminders. You find us facebook.com/NEWriters. And if you've enjoyed it, you can always donate. If you have too much money, we are here to help you. We are a nonprofit helping poets and poetry and teaching and all that. So this will be put on YouTube. I'll send a link out to everybody who registered for this today. And just again, Christine, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.